Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hi friends, welcome to another spicy recommendation video, smutty, slutty, ooh, whatever you want to call it. I have 10 recommendations that are totally random. The only thing that they all have in common is that there's some good steamy tips in them. Some of them are new, some of them are older, but I just wanted to bring them to your attention. And you know, there's no thing really holding them together besides just being some random recommendations for me. When I put these videos together, you know, I've done quite a few of these now. There's a whole playlist of my recommendations that you can check out. I just am like, what are some that I would like to talk about some more? Some that I want to get a boost, you know, that's what I love to do. So that's why I also put links to all of these books down below. If you use my Amazon link, it helps me out. Of course, it helps the author out, and we can spread some love to these books. But we're going to go through these, particularly starting with some that I recently read. And this one is from debut authors, and I just had such a good time reading it. So this is The Pleasure Protocol by Darcy Romaine and Kat Alexander. This just came out last week, and this is an erotic BDSM romance. It also is an escort romance. So this isn't, you know, everybody's cup of tea, but oh my gosh, it really is mine. You know, you guys might not be surprised, but I really do enjoy reading BDSM romances. I enjoy kinky romances. I don't always want one that is turned up to a 5, but I do when it's done right. And to me, this one was just done so well. The way that this billionaire, he's looking to take an escort with him to an event, and he has a certain escort that he uses every time, and this man is actually busy. He has like gotten married actually, so he's not available to go to this event with him. So it turns out that his normal escort is like, oh hey, why don't you ask Corinne? She would be perfect for you. She's beautiful, she's great at her job, and I think you guys will click, you know, with some of the kinks that you like too. So he's like, well, okay, don't know if I can trust this person or any of that, but let's go ahead. And he reaches out to her, and she does end up being available. And when they meet, there's just this instant chemistry. It's definitely more for Corinne than just, you know, getting a new client. There's just something about them that really clicks together, and they are off to the races, as they say. And so there's some really beautiful scenes of how the negotiation happens, how some of their kinks evolve. There's also a really cool look at how their kinks like start and how they are a little bit safer with each other in the beginning, really sticking to their rules. And then as they are together and they're sharing more of themselves, they renegotiate what they're comfortable trying with other person once there's some more trust, right? So I really liked in here that the heroine being an escort, she has some very strict rules for, even though there's kinks that she likes, she can't do them with her client, right? So there's no like breath play that's allowed, and there's nothing that involves a marking, right? So not heavy impact play or, you know, ropes that are going to leave marks or paddling that could leave bruising, because, you know, it's bad form if she goes to see another client and there's remnants of a previous client still on her. So just some very interesting things that you might not like think about, but they're things that she needs to follow just to, you know, keep everything smooth and working, right? So I just loved it. And as they start to fall for each other, you know, as always happens when it's an escort situation, you have to kind of see if there's real feelings or was this all just for money and where it's going. So highly, highly recommend. Please give these new authors a try. The one thing that was a tiny detractor for me that I've told people is that this one is told in third person, and I know that that doesn't always work for everyone with romance, but if you're used to reading fantasy or some paranormals, like, you're probably used to it and you'd be okay, but just wanted to give you a warning. I actually have a few sex worker romances in this one, so we're just going to keep going with those since we're right there before we move on. So there is also Her Villain by S.M. LaViolette. I am really pushing this book right now, okay? It just recently came out. I didn't read an arc of this one. I'm not promoting it for any. I just genuinely enjoyed it so much. I salivate and look forward to books from S.M. LaViolette. There's just something about the stories that she tells, particularly within her Victorian decadent series, which is erotic, dark, historical romance, that just hits so many buttons for me. Okay, so if you like dark romance, if you like really sexy romance, but you also like really complex characters, this one was fantastic. I've really been comparing it to, you know, it's a mix of, we do have a sex worker heroine who's very desperate. She needs safety and security, and she finds this man who is willing to have her as like a long-term, you know, not quite a mistress, like he doesn't want to call it that, but that's basically what it is, giving her a place to stay and some security for a little while. And our male main character in this one, he is definitely neurodivergent. I would say on the psychopath more than I would say that he would be on like the spectrum of something, but he's neurodivergent in the way that like he doesn't really have a lot of feelings. He was very broken as a child. So, you know, you can decide where you felt with that, but the author herself says she was aiming to write a psychopath. So people can decide where they want to take it. You as the reader can interpret it how you want, but I don't generally like to say that people who are, you know, neurodivergent in that way, that it's because they're a psychopath. I don't always like to pair those together, and the author was going for a psychopath. But anyway, he is also like an assassin and works for the government, and he's just about the pleasure. He likes hurting people. He is a sadist, and so that makes him very good at his job. And also because he is, you know, unfeeling and doesn't care what others think, you know, he's really just going about life how he wants. And when he offers to let the heroine stay with him, it's not out of any compassion or out of any, you know, softness for her. He's thinking of the convenience of basically having the sex worker living with him. Why not, right? It'll just make it more convenient to have her here exactly when I want her. He very much likes his schedule and routine. So while she's there, there's a time she's supposed to be ready for him. And also there is like, there's a different kind of negotiation within this one, we'll say. It was very interesting. And our heroine, for her part, of course, this starts out as work for her. She is a woman who she's pretty new to the profession of being a sex worker. She was forced into it, as most of the ladies are, back then at least. I mean, and today too, but specifically for her having been in a brothel, it was because she was left with nothing. And when she tries to, you know, leave and move on, all of the money she'd saved had been stolen. So yeah, but what she comes to discover as she spends time with David is that she does like that he hurts her. She likes that he degrades her. She's discovering kinks that she didn't know that she had, mostly because when things were done to her before, they weren't really ever consensual. You know, like it's consensual in the sense that she's being paid to have it done, but she also just needs to do what pleases the client, not what she herself is getting pleasure from, right? You know, that's what sex workers do. And so David enjoys kind of forcing her pleasure out of her, which is just a very new experience for her. No one usually cares if she does, or they just want her to fake it so they can feel good about themselves. So highly, highly recommend this. If historical is something you're nervous about, but you like erotic romance, definitely give this a go. All of the historical aspects of it are very easy to follow along. Or if you really love historical romance and you like it darker and sexier and grittier, like definitely give this one a go. And then also, I've been comparing this one to, and I will continue to, if you liked Run, Posey, Run, you should try this book. Because there is something that these two do together that really reminded me of Run, Posey, Run. And especially to that part of, oh, I forgot that hero's name right now, where when there is something that may be taken away from them, it makes them rethink how they feel about the person. So, highly recommend it. All right, and then the other one that happens to be a sex worker is The Homewrecker. This one is the most recent release from Sarah Kate. I can't wait for The Heartbreaker is coming next. But this one is an MMF. This one is a married couple, and sex worker named Dean. Also, he used to be kind of like the secret lover of Caleb, who is part in the married couple. His younger brother's like secret lover, secret first boyfriend, and they very much had to hide it because their father was a pastor. He was a very religious, cruel man, and so his younger brother was not able to be out about his sexuality. So Dean kind of hates this older brother because he sees him as having like betrayed, you know, this first love of his. But he now works at the sex club, Salacious Players Club. No. That's a different series by her. That's so funny. But he works at a sex club that our characters from the first book, like, they like own it. And he will see both male and female clients and give them what they need, but lately he hasn't been feeling quite as fulfilled with it. And when his home burns down and his father actually needs to go into an assisted living place, he doesn't have a place to go. And so Adam, who is Caleb's brother, suggests, hey, my brother, they have a open apartment above their like pool house or whatever. You could stay there. And so now Dean is actually staying basically at Caleb's house. And both Caleb and the wife, I think it's Briar, I was right, they're having some struggles in their marriage. They're having some infertility issues. They are losing connection with each other. And having Dean thrown into their lives is going to throw them for a loop. Now, there's a little bit of cheating that happens in this, as sometimes exists when you have a married couple that's going to add a third person in. But the way that it plays out, it worked for me, and it was super hot and very quick. Like, there's no animosity that's carried or any like bitterness, and we very quickly are all having a fun time together. So definitely like that. All right, no more of the sex workers. Let's move along. I have actually made a full video that is sex worker recommendations, by the way, if you'd like to see that. All right, a recent read for me that I was so happy I finally got to was actually Hans by S.J. Tilley, and I was so sad that this wrapped up the Alliance series. I know that I am definitely not the first to be shouting about this series, but I do always hold a little soft spot because this series, not only did I meet S.J. Tilley before she blew up when I went to North Iowa Book Bash and actually got a signed copy of Nero before we knew what Nero was going to be, but these mafia romances take place in like Minnesota and I think like Chicago, sometimes they go there, but they take place in like Minneapolis, and you know, I grew up near there, so it's funny to see the organized crime of that area and see places mentioned that I have been before is always a kick because those don't usually show up when we do mafia, you know. I have another unlikely mafia one to get to soon too. But anyway, this is book 4 in her Alliance series. It is best if you read the series in order. I know not everyone will. You could jump to this if you want to. It's fine. This one is a neighbor's romance, but also Hans is an assassin and he will do the odd jobs now and then. But also he's doing this on a mission. He fights against sex traffickers because of an incident that happened with his sister when he was younger. It's left a great scar on him. He lost not only his sister, but then his parents couldn't handle it, and they followed not long after. And so not only does he want revenge against the people who are responsible for his sister being taken, but he just wants to scourge the earth of it. Something I really loved in this one, our heroine is Cassie. She makes really bad baked goods that she brings over to him, and he can't help but eat all of it. He also, when she leaves for the day, he will sneak in to make sure her home is safe, which of course makes so much sense. But she's left the stove on before, she's left the door unlocked before, and he just goes through her house to make sure she's safe. You know, he's a gentle stalker. But really, he doesn't speak to her because he's afraid that he would just basically want to consume her and keep her for himself, and he doesn't think he's able to love or that he could be good enough for her. You know, sad, poor boy situation, right? Just like, oh, poor me. But once they finally interact with each other, there's no going back, and he's just head over heels for her. Now, where I was going with the little rabbit trail I just mentioned, I'm very interested to see if S.J. Tilley does do a spin-off about the women who are also fighting sex trafficking, because something that Hans does is there's this group of like ladies who have been rescued from sex trafficking, and then they can either decide if they want to go back to their lives and they get help to do that, or they can actually join this crew that fights against it. And I'm crossing my fingers so hard that there will be a spin-off series that does that, because that would be awesome. But anyway, all the men in this series are ooey gooey, gumdrop. It's over the top. They're wild. I say these ones are just like bonkers. They're absolutely bonkers. Good time. And I really love the audiobooks. I waited to read these each until the audiobooks were out, and now they all are. So I highly, highly recommend this series, but just know, like, it's not the same type of mafia, you know, as some of my others on the shelves. It's a little more bonkers. Like, there's not another way to say it. It's just bonkers. So, but very kinky and fun at the same time. So going from a light and crazy kinky one, now we have a more wild one. Now, I haven't read this one in a hot minute, so I'm actually going to read like the back cover to you, but I actually love the object covers for this series. I've been collecting them all, and this is a dark romance series that has sat at some solid like 4 stars for me. But all of them have some kinks that I really love. You know, they all have kind of like breath play, somnophilia, dubcon. Some of them have like voyeuristic scenes, and they're just very dark and very hot, and I can't help myself. I just love them. But anyway, this one says, I had a foolproof plan. Finish college playing the best sport on earth, hockey. Get drafted by an NHL team. Make my senator father at least a little proud of me. I was on track to do just that until Violet Reese and I collided, literally. Turns out my plan didn't account for a night in jail, the news articles that followed it. Everything fell apart after that. New school, new hockey team, and a resentment like I've never felt before directed at the girl who set me off course. Hold on, we'll get to it. Lucky for me, she attends the new school of mine, and there are thousands of ways to ruin her. So, this girl who ruined his life, yeah, he hit her car while he was drunk driving and injured her. So she was a ballerina and a dancer, and he set her life off course. But this jacked up son of a senator thinks it's her fault for like being in the wrong place at the wrong time and getting hit and then losing, you know, what she had with her career. So I know I'm laughing about it, but the audacity of the boy in this book is just the way that he has it twisted that she did something wrong to him when he's the one who could have killed her, like almost killed her, is just wild. And I tell you what, the magic that S. Massery did is that I liked him by the end of this book. I actually liked him by the end of this book, okay? And I don't understand how. Because he starts bullying her that she's at his school and like threatening her. But then very quickly, well, not very quickly, because this one's a long one. This is a long book right here. The way that his outlook on it changes, and then when he becomes very protective of her, I thought was just very interesting. So yes, I'm putting this and like all of these books in this series on here, but they are definitely for those of you who like the bully romances, who like it dark, who are okay with the heroes being criminals. Like for real, there is murder that happens in this series. There's covering up crimes that happen, and that's not even having to do with what they do to the ladies that they end up loving. It's just crazy. So definitely think more along the lines of like Legacy of the God series type of like wild. So for sure. All right, then we have another dark romance that is a little bit more on the funny side, and I like to compare this one a little bit to Butcher and Blackbird. It's not quite as sophisticated, or well, not that I would call Butcher and Blackbird sophisticated. That's stretching it just a little bit, but it is a good time. Okay, I love Butcher and Blackbird. It's so much fun. But there is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, which this book came out, and like I have to commend Nevessa so much because I've been a fan for years, and then she like disappeared off the face of the internet while her family went through some changes, and she came back in and wrote this fucking book that just took TikTok by storm. That's been all over Instagram. She built up her Instagram in a matter of months by just going in hardcore, and it was just wild. So I was so excited to read this book, and I did have a really good time with it. I honestly did. And this is a stalker romance, but it's one where he's definitely on the sweeter side. And our heroine has like used to hook up with his like roommate. Our hero secretly is this masked playboy on basically TikTok. And she has become obsessed with him, and she'll actually talk with him and chats and flirt with him. And he is trying to like lure her out to him. And so one day he sneaks into her home. He's planted cameras there already, by the way. Like, he's been watching her. And he films a TikTok in and on her bed. And so she sees it. And now she knows that, oh my God, what is this guy doing? And now it's like game on, because she, you know, though she should definitely go to the police about this, she doesn't. Instead, she decides to play back with this guy. So yeah, and the reason why I compare it to Butcher and Blackbird, I almost said booger. The way that this compares to Butcher and Blackbird, you will have to read to see, but this does go beyond just stalking each other and then making some kinky things. There's some role playing here, breath play, blindfolding, there's knife play. There is a lot of wild kinky stuff in this one, and it's still not like as dark as some of the others, so you can still have a fun time with it. But yeah, very spicy, very wild, and it's crazy. All right, then let's just keep on with, we have one other dark romance, and this one too, though I wouldn't call it like light the way Hans is, or like light the way Lights Out is, if they can be considered light. But I call them my soft mafia boys, is what they call them. And so we have the Men of the Falls. This is a Canadian mafia dark romance, and this is a duet that is called Aldo and Roman, and I really, really loved these books. I read arcs of them earlier this year, and when I went to North Iowa Book Bash, I got myself the bind up, which I need to go through because I know there's like bonus scenes and like extra stuff in these, so I definitely need to go through them. But this is about, I think it's called The Falls is the place, and that's why it's called The Falls. But there is this casino that Roman runs it, and Aldo is like his right-hand man. And the first one, being Aldo, is about this woman who gets, I think Violet is her name, who gets a job there working at like one of the kitchens, one of the restaurants within the casino. And Aldo can't help but be very attracted to her, but now she's an employee and he would never make her feel awkward about anything. You know, he would never pressure her into anything. So even though she may want him to do something with her, she's never gonna like push it. Yeah, Violet's her name. But they end up having this fling that leads to more. Then we have Roman, who, as I said, is the one who runs it. And he, you know, again, he is still involved with the mafia. So there's this woman who owes him a lot of money. And this woman, in exchange for the money she owes, she offers up her sister. And Roman is like, the fuck you think you're trying to offer your sister in exchange for your debt? No. And he's like, you have like 48 hours or a week. I can't remember how long it is. It's a short amount of time to give me my money, or you're going to pay for it a different way, right? So the implication being that he would, you know, kill her to get his money that he needs or whatever. But instead of her giving her sister to Roman, then she finds someone else who will take her up on the offer. And her sister, who owns a small restaurant, she gets kidnapped and is going to be sold into sex trafficking. And Roman, he starts to have a hunch that something bad happened when this sister shows up with the money and is like, here you go, and drops the money. And he's like, where the fuck did she get the money? And he's like, what if she took that somewhere else? So he doesn't know why he feels so guilty. He has his money. He shouldn't care, but he just can't help it. He knows that, I think it's his grandma or his aunt. I think it's a aunt or a grandma or a mom. I honestly don't know. Like, she would be so disappointed if he did this, and he won't sleep well until he finds out. So he does. He goes to look into this sister, and he realizes that she has been kidnapped. And so, like, he needs to go find her. The only thing is that now the people who've taken her, they've paid for her, and they don't want to give her up so easily. So he's kind of involved himself in this now, and while he thinks she's worth it, he also may be fucking a lot of things up by doing this. So yeah, there's also some fake dating that ends up happening in that one. Like, it's just wild. So I highly recommend this duet. It's so good. The audiobooks are both available as well. I did reviews of those when they were coming out too, so I highly recommend. All right, now let's throw in to you. I haven't had many to put in rec videos lately because I haven't had time to read as many as I want to. But I have a fan fiction for you, and this one is called Mind the Bump, and it's by Soap One, which I will leave a link to it on AO3. If you don't know, you cannot buy a copy of this book anywhere, but you can get it for free on AO3, where it is free always and forever. It will be, so you can get the whole story right now. Go get it and read it. And this one is an accidental pregnancy for Draco and Hermione, and Draco is actually already a single dad. Little Scorpius isn't that old at all, and Hermione and Draco see each other again for the first time in a long time at a party that Theo is having. They both care about Theo. I think Theo works with Hermione, and then of course Theo is Draco's friend. And so they're both at this party, and they end up talking, and they haven't talked in ages. And I mean, she knows that he's been through a lot, and they just end up talking, and they both have this great connection. And so they get a little tipsy, and they end up going back to her place and getting it on. And, you know, Draco has to leave to relieve the sitter and get home to Scorpius. And not long after, Hermione discovers that she's pregnant. And so she doesn't wait too long at all to go and tell Draco about it. And they then soon after discover that not only is she pregnant, but it is a magically linked pregnancy, which in this, you know, little fantasy version of fan fiction, what am I even saying? I don't know. In this little version of it, that means that as it gets closer and closer to the birth of the baby, Draco and Hermione can be less distance apart because their magic is like linked to the baby. And so she ends up having to move into his house and is in like the mistress's room, not the mistress, the mistress of the house's rooms right across from his. And we start getting to see her interact with Scorpius, which is so cute. And it just goes from there. So I loved this one. If you love accidental pregnancies, if you love fan fiction, if you love soft dad Draco, if you love adorable little Scorpius, you will like this one. It was a joy. I had so much fun with it. All right, now we just have two regular contemporaries to round it out. So you know I can't go many videos without talking about Julia Wolf, and she had a recent release this month which rounded out the Harder They Fall series, and this book was Not So Truly Yours. This one is about Miles and Daisy, and this book was so wonderful. It was a great way to round off the series. I can't wait to see what she's doing next. But for this one, we have Daisy, who she is a baker and a bit of a black cat. This is a black cat, like grumpy heroine, golden retriever, sunshine hero. And Miles is actually in business with Saoirse, who, if you've read the series, her book is book 2. And they have this business that helps small businesses get off the ground. They help with the social, they help with planning, they help with getting them investing if they need it, and that's what they love to do. And through some connections here and there and events, Daisy actually meets a friend of Saoirse, or is it her sister-in-law? I don't even know, but there's a connection to Saoirse that Daisy gets introduced to, and they tell her about Saoirse. So she meets her, and then she's like, let me bring you in with my business partner, and let's see how we can help you. So she doesn't even fully know what she would do with her business. But here's the thing. When she meets Miles, she has already met him actually at a bar where she does these little like hors d'oeuvres and cupcakes and these little charcutes cups that she does, meat cups. And they actually met each other, and she immediately disliked him because he ate some of her cupcakes that she was there to sell. And he was actually working at this bar because one of his friends had started this business. You know, he helps with businesses, so he was actually there for 2 nights. And they didn't get off to a good start. She made some assumptions about him. And also, the guy who he's there helping says some pretty, like, not very nice things about Miles behind his back, which is like, wow, I thought you were friends with him, but he doesn't have a super great opinion of Miles, apparently, which I'm just like, whatever. And so they get off to kind of an interesting foot. So when she finds out that Miles will be someone helping her with this, she's like, I don't know if this will work out. I've heard that, you know, maybe you wouldn't be someone I'd want to work with. And he's just like, I will put everything I can into your business. Are you sure you are ready for this? And so they decide that they are, and they're going to go about making her little endeavor popular, whether that's like catering for events or doing small parties, doing whatever. They're going to figure it out. And there is a bit of fake dating that comes along in here. There's also some more like emotional themes that come into this one. The way that's what Julia Wolf does, right? She pulls that stuff in there. So I love this series so much. In my opinion, the books got better and better. I mean, P.S. You're Intolerable is still my favorite, but if you've read Dear Grumpy Boss and you don't quite love that one, please continue. Insincerely, My Inconvenient Wife, love it. P.S. You're Intolerable, my favorite book of 2023. And Not So Truly Yours, 5 stars, loved it. You gotta give Daisy and Miles a try. And the last book I want to mention is a series that I love to bring around every now and then because I just love showing off the covers. I won't pretend anything else. But there is Love Me Today by A.L. Jackson. This is the first book in her Time River series. I did take the cover off of my hardback to show you the naked beauty that is this cover here. But this is the first in a series. This is a single guardian, and this woman who is supposed to be the like horse lessons for his little ward, who is actually his niece, and he's a billionaire now. He used to be from this town. Now he's made a lot of money, and he's back in town with his niece, working on the ranch now, overseeing everything. And he gets off to a bad start with this woman and doesn't think he trusts her to be, you know, teaching to his ward. But the thing is, she knows a lot, and a lot of his like anger has to do with his attraction to her, and he has trust issues, and so there's a lot of grumpy growly stuff going on. You know, he's got lots of rah that he puts out, but it's just so beautiful. So Paisley's our heroine. Look at that pretty photo of her. Let's find one of Caleb's, and then there's Caleb's right there. I love her books. This series is so wonderful. And so this is one, if you love small town, if you like kind of cowboy, they get a little, you know, this one's not quite fully cowboy, though there are horses. Like, she's a cowgirl. I would say she's a cowgirl. He's definitely like the city guy who's there. You know, he used to live in the area, but he was in the city for a long time dealing with business and stuff. So he's a little bit, it takes a little bit to sink back into it, we'll say. So, highly recommend Love Me Today by A.L. Jackson. So there you go. There's 10 random book recommendations. Let me know if you've read some of these. Let me know if you have recommendations for me or anyone else. I always have a book recommendation form in my description. It takes me a while to get to stuff sometimes. However, that's the best way to leave a recommendation for me because I don't really check the comments for recommendations. There's just too much that comes in. But if you put it in the book rec form, I will see it because I go through that weekly to see if there's ones I'm interested in. And if I'm not, well, at least you tried and I have it there. So thank you so much for watching, friends. Remember, if you want to get any of these books, they're linked down below. Give this video a thumbs up and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.